how can you turn on your longevity genes? During this episode, you're going to learn how you can change your own genes. I mean, not change the genes themselves, but change the genes that are turned on and which ones are turned off so that you can both live longer and live healthier for longer. Hannah Went is a molecular biologist who is changing what it means to age well. Hannah used to work for the International Peptide Society as their director of research and content. And then she saw a massive opportunity for methylation-based age diagnostics, and she started TruDiagnostics in 2020. Since TruDiagnostics' inception, they have created one of the largest private epigenetic health databases in the world, with over 75,000 patients tested to date. Hannah has since created Everything Epigenetics, where she shares insights on how DNA regulation has an impact on your health. In this episode, Hannah ranks the top 4 habits that will help you live longer, and the top one isn't actually what you'd think. It's not nutrition or exercise. Hannah also takes us through her daily routine and tells us what habits she does and what supplements she takes to ensure a long, healthy life. I'm telling you, if you care about your long-term health, you don't want to miss this episode. Again, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you hit follow. Make sure you share this episode if you enjoy it with a friend or family member. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe there as well. But for now, it's time to get closer and closer to your best you with Hannah Went. All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I have been very excited for this interview. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Hannah Went. Hannah, I've had a lot of conversations with people, I feel like, over the years, where a lot of people think they're destined by their DNA and destined by their genetics, whereas epigenetics, I feel like really over the last handful of years is continuing to get more and more mainstream and more understood about its role and its involvement in our health span, lifespan, and disease or lack thereof. And so really excited to talk about epigenetics, talking about how that relates to everyday health and how we're actually being able to live out our lives in a healthier manner, but also live longer, so health span and lifespan. And I want to start off just kind of like laying the groundwork of what epigenetics is. You know, I think a lot of us have maybe heard some people use phrases like your DNA loads the gun, but then your epigenetics or your lifestyle pulled the trigger. Some of us have maybe heard that 20% of health outcomes are DNA-based, 80% is epigenetics. So give us a little bit more context around what epigenetics is to kind of lay the foundation for the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Nick. I'm excited to be here as well. So epigenetics is, we can break this down even by, what this word actually means. Epi means above, it's a Greek prefix, or it means on top of. So we're quite literally looking on top of the genome, the DNA. So like you mentioned, that genome is your hardware. It's not changing, but the epigenetics is really the software of that hardware. So we're able to change our gene expression. It really is a term that's exploring how environmental factors and experiences can influence your gene activity without altering that exact DNA sequence itself. So really, how does our behavior and our environment interact with our genome, with our body at a cellular level?
Great. And one of the things I'm really excited about is, as you obviously know, I did one of y'all's tests, one of y'all's blood work tests, and submitted. I haven't gotten my results yet, and I'm waiting probably here in the next few days or the next week or so. But so this is something that everybody can get a sense of where they currently stand. So talk to us about when you're doing an epigenetics test, what kind of feedback are you getting?
Yeah, right now I would say epigenetics is really heard of through the lens of biological aging. I would say that's where we can make the biggest impact and really where it was first brought to light. In a sense that aging is the number one risk factor for all-cause mortality and morbidity. It's where we can definitely, again, make the biggest impact. I mean, not only health impacts, but even economical impacts as well. If we even extend lifespan by a year, I think we increase like US dollars by about 37 trillion, and our debt is even higher than that. So, I mean, there's massive impacts even outside of health itself. But through epigenetics, not only can we actually just measure biological age, Nick, what I'm most excited about now is all of the other factors we can actually start to measure and infer from measuring epigenetics. So we do have some recent data we just reviewed with Harvard where we realized we can report out over 4,000 clinical lab values, metabolites, proteins, things like neurotransmitter markers, hormone levels, sexual function outcomes, inflammatory status, just by measuring epigenetics. So that is what I call an EBP, or an epigenetic biomarker proxy. That's, I would say, what I'm really most excited about, because it's going beyond that traditional landscape of just getting biological age through epigenetics.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. I know that methylation, I think, is another one of these words that's becoming more and more popular and a little bit more and more understood. And it seems to be kind of you can obviously explain this further, but it seems to be kind of like the thing that will determine what genes are turned off or what genes are turned on. So give us a little bit more sense of what methylation is and how that relates to epigenetics.
Yeah, so you think of epigenetics as like this umbrella, right? You have a ton of different epigenetic modifications underneath that umbrella. So you're painting this picture, and there's all different types. What we really focus on at my company at TruDiagnostic is the DNA methylation you mentioned. And that is really just looking at a little chemical group. It's called a CH3 group. It's a carbon and 3 hydrogens. And that little chemical group really means so much as it relates to the function of your body. If that chemical group is present, your gene is actually turned off or less expressed. Where if that little chemical group is not there, we would call that position unmethylated, and that gene would actually be expressed and turned on. And I think what may be confusing to some people is they're like, oh, I want everything turned on, right? Like, let's ramp it up. But it's actually, you want a really healthy balance. So you want some genes to be turned on, you want some genes to be turned off. And I think a really good example of that is even your cancer genes, your oncogenes. You want them methylated, you want them turned off, but you want your tumor suppressor genes, unmethylated and turned on to suppress those tumors.
So again, I have a relatively limited knowledge on this subject, obviously, which is why I'm interviewing you. I recently or a handful of months ago now, did my own genetic testing, realized like I have a mutation in my MTHFR gene. And so because of that, I have recently been taking a supplement, a MethylGuard supplement, to help improve my methylation processes. I guess, talk to me about, you said sometimes you want things turned off, sometimes you want things turned on. If I am improving my methylation, is my body able to sense when things are supposed to be turned on and when things are supposed to be turned off if my methylation pathways are more optimized?
Yeah, they're completely separate processes. They go hand in hand though. So when we talk about methylation here at TruDiagnostic, people do go to the MTHFR gene right away. That MTHFR gene, it's going to be a SNP, it's going to be a single nucleotide polymorphism. But again, if we think about methylation broadly, it's just a biochemical process that involves the addition of that methyl group, that molecule, that CH3, to DNA, RNA, proteins. And that can happen in a ton of different pathways in the body. We're giving off these little methyl donors, we call them. But the MTHFR gene, that actually provides instructions on how we may methylate. So Nick, you said, you have a specific variant that doesn't make you methylate as well. So we're just giving you a little bit support, right? With that product I just saw you pulled up. So they do go hand in hand, but really they're completely different processes. The gene is really responsible for, cellular repair, detoxification, neurotransmitter production, having a healthy immune system function. So if that gene isn't up to par, you're going to have worse health outcomes. And we can fix that by actually adding some of that methylation and optimizing those pathways, if you will.
So I guess what are some of I don't know if this is the right question. What are some of the different pathways that do help regulate methylation? I think that's the right question.
Yeah, so in terms of maybe pathways that help regulate methylation, anything and everything in the body is really going to regulate it. It's going to be changeable by really environment. So in terms of just like generalized pathways, like I'll give one example. We can even go like neurotransmitters, right? If you're going to be depleted with neurotransmitters, you're not going to methylate, properly in those specific pathways. And maybe you then have an increased chance of becoming, depressed or having increased anxiety. So it's really affecting everything in the body. Not only that, in terms of if those chemical pathways or mechanism of actions are thrown off, but this is kind of like weird to talk about, but even like how you process your own thoughts. Like if you make a mistake and you beat yourself up over it, you're going to have a negative effect on your methylation. But if you're like, oh, okay, I made a mistake, right? I'll get it next time. You're going to have like positive reinforcement and have better methylation. So really everything you do is affecting how your body is methylating right now.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, let's dive into the biological age versus chronological age. I know like a lot of people, especially in the health and fitness space, oftentimes if they have a podcast or YouTube channel, they get this test done and they'll like brag about how their biological age is a certain age lower than their current chronological age. What exactly does that tell us? So if somebody's like chronological age is 50, but then they get testing done and it shows their biological age is 40, let's say, so they are technically healthier maybe than their birthday. How good of a predictor is that of actual lifespan? Is that person going to live 10 years longer than maybe a typical person would live? Give us a little bit more sense of kind of the usefulness of biological age versus chronological age.
Yeah, I think, people who are saying they have these like large increases or decreases, they're probably using pretty bad clocks, right? Pretty bad biological age interpretations. I would say just generally most older clocks are not useful. I think in the last 6 months, personally, in the work we've done at TruDiagnostic, I've felt like they've really started to gain momentum because of improvements we made within them. So, they may have gotten a worse name in the past because of that, or haven't been very reliable, or have, poor mean average errors. Some of the original clocks, for example, have a 4-year mean average error. So that means if the same person took the test on the same day at that same time, it could vary by up to 4 years, right? What we've done here at TruDiagnostic, though, is with these newer clocks, kind of like this True Age Pace test we have, which is a really fun one. It has an error of about 0.5%, right? That's incredible. And it's actually very, very useful. So when we start to talk about biological age and chronological age, it's this idea that just because you have a chronological age of, let's say 45, you may look way older than that, right? Or you may look way younger than that. So chronological age just is not a good biomarker in and of itself. I think we're all pretty familiar with that idea. So biological age is really the idea that we're aging at this cellular level, and we're able to measure that very accurately and very precisely now. Because if you are at an increased biological age compared to your chronological age, you're at increased risk for almost every single other disease and death. And I think you asked the question, Nick, like, are you actually able to tell that? And absolutely. With one of our new clocks we just created with Harvard back in October, it's called Omic M-Age. We can actually predict your death with a 92% accuracy rate in the next 5 years.
Wow.
We don't report on that. But we can do it and we can run it. We don't report on it for I would say obvious reasons, but it's absolutely possible. So they're getting better and better over time, and really starting to be a tool, at least I'm seeing, gain momentum in all of these like functional, true healthcare models, right? Cash pay models instead of those insurance kind of sick care based models.
Wow. So basically, if we're looking for our biological age after doing one of these tests, it's essentially, we can think about it from the lens of simply, like you mentioned earlier, age is the number one risk factor for all these different diseases. And if our biological age is just lower than our chronological age, then our risk factor for just all types of diseases or all cause mortality is lower.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really cool about this too is it's tangible, right? You get your report, you get your results back, and it's either a wake up call saying, oh crap, I really didn't work out or, stick to that promise that I made myself and was going to, eat healthy and do all of these things. But wow, I am aging a little bit faster. Let me go renegotiate the promises that I made to myself in terms of the lifestyle I want to be living, my habits, my routine. And I think it really does start to put things into perspective as an overall health picture, because I think you even hinted at this too, Nick. It's not necessarily about lifespan, right? How long we are on this earth. I don't want to live to 200 probably, period. It just seems like such a long time. But in the years I am alive, I want those to be healthy, right? I don't have children now, I'm married, but one day I want to have kids. I want them to have grandkids and watch them fall in love, right? I want to have a puppy when I'm like 80 years old and start a new business if I want to. So I think it's talking about the why and increasing the healthy years at the end of your life.
For sure. No doubt about it. When it comes to, like, let's say somebody's going to get this test for the first time, and like, I'm eager to see my results. What should be like a good goal with regards to your biological age compared to your chronological age? Now, I'm just 29, so I don't necessarily expect it to be like 19 per se, but like maybe somebody who is 60 should have the goal of being 50 biological age. Is there like a good sense of what somebody's goal should look like or should be compared to what their chronological age is?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because like these larger biological age clocks that we can actually compare to your chronological age, I actually call them more of a historical tracker. So it actually has tracked everything that's happened across your entire lifetime, right? Like I know personally, I did things in my younger years that weren't like very favorable for my health. I won't say like most.
Same here.
Could be the same. No judgment.
Yeah.
So even like trauma, right? Things that happen during your childhood years that you may not even be aware of. So instead of like giving a goal for the biological age, I really say we just want to be younger, right? We want to be younger because we have that reduced risk. I'd like to set a goal for that pace of aging, which is telling you how quickly you're aging at this moment in time. And that is a really cool kind of outcome. It's more of like a speedometer, and you can be anywhere from 0.6 to 1.4. Now, I'd like to set that goal at 0.75. So think about it in quarters, basically. You want to be at 0.75 biological years for every one chronological year, because if you do that, every 3 years, excuse me, you'd be shaving a year off, right? Your overall biological age. And that is more representative of like a 3 to 6 month running average of your daily, life compared to that historical biological age clock, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I had looked up a little bit about this before. So it's like, to give everybody again a sense of what she's saying here, it's for when 365 days goes by chronologically, you're only aging 3/4 of a year rather than a full calendar year if that pace is 0.75. And so again, stack that year after year after year, you're only gaining 3 biological years for every 4 chronological years. So you're saving yourself a year. So no, that's awesome. And I love that that's the outlook on what the goal is. I think that's super great. And it keeps you on top of it because you want to keep that same pace as you age and stuff. With all I think one of the super cool things is you have like 75,000 patients tested with your epigenetics testing with TruDiagnostic. I know it's kind of impossible to say to an extent, but I'm going to kind of like give you the impossible question of how would you rank like healthy habits as it pertains to positive impacts on your epigenetics? There's like obviously like sleep, strength training, cardiovascular training, certain nutritional habits, alcohol reduction, stress reduction. Like how would you, to as best as we possibly can, or at least discuss the topic of like what are some of these most important habits that influence epigenetics in a positive manner?
Yeah, and just to be clear too, you're asking me to like rank kind of those lifestyle factors. Yeah. This is a fun question. I think if I would have to put my money on it, I call like the big four, or like the fundamentals, kind of your stress, sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I would put stress first. I think I really would. Those weren't meant to be stated like in order, but if I had to pick, I would put my money on stress. Um, it affects everything, right? Where like a little bit of stress is good. It means you care. It means you have a purpose. But oxidative or just, too much stress increases oxidative stress, increases inflammation. There's a lot of neurological, physiological effects associated with that. And just according to research, which is really what I always go back to, the epigenetic clocks themselves really contain a lot of positions on glucocorticoid receptor elements, meaning really that stress hormone, cortisol, we see increases of biological age upon increases of cortisol, which is going to be a byproduct of stress, of course. There's a cool paper too, Nick, called Biological Age is Increased and then Restored Upon Recovery. It's by Dr. Jesse Poganik out of Harvard. It's a really like one of the top research labs for aging in the country. And they looked at pregnancy, elected and unelected surgeries, and very severe COVID-19. And they did see biological age shoot way up with those stressors. I mean, those are very, very extreme. But the good news is once you control for those stressors, it goes back down or even past baseline. So there is hope, there's change. We can reduce those levels with stressors too.
Okay. So if stress is the top one, I know you kind of just quickly said like sleep, nutrition, exercise. What are some other these like top next top three, if you will?
If I had to rank them, I would put, stress. Then I would put nutrition. Then I think I would put exercise. Then sleep. Final answer.
Final answer. I love it. I love it. Talk to me about when you guys are doing this testing. When you say nutrition is obviously a top one, how personalized does nutrition need to be based off of what you've seen feedback from epigenetics testing? Like how much of nutrition, like are there baseline foundational principles that everybody should follow? And then there's just individual, like certain things that work for individual people better than others. Give us a sense of how different people respond to different nutritional philosophies.
Sure. I think it's still so early. Kind of like you have the nutrigenomics and you can make recommendations a little bit based on genetics. I think there's still that's very controversial still if you're really able to do that. I think we're still learning about epigenetics as well. In that sense, I think there are like baseline recommendations we would recommend from for everyone. And that would be more, hey, it's intuitive, right? Quality foods. We're thinking diets like Mediterranean, the DASH diet, dietary approaches to stop hypertension, which is, more like chicken, fish, less red meat, less sugar sweetened beverages, less sodium. But then again, it can be a little bit personalized where you match it with your genetics and say, okay, do I need, more protein here? Do I need, other nutrients there? Being very heavy with veggies, getting enough fiber, getting enough vitamins, and then generally just caloric restriction. Nick, I think that's like the best recommendation I would make for anyone. Again, when I say best, I'm talking about peer-reviewed literature that's really these findings. So just a 10% overall caloric restriction in healthy non-obese adults over a 2-year period really slowed down the aging. And again, you have to be careful there. It's not like skipping a meal. It's doing it in a very strategic way, depending if you're in the right place in your life to undertake that.
Yeah, I got you. Because I know we all love to ask experts what they're doing. What are some of the different habits that you are doing on a regular basis, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, to, in your eyes, improve your epigenetics, improve how your lifestyle impacts your DNA and your genetics?
Yeah, I think even just like walking you through my day maybe would give you like a good idea.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you like how long maybe I've been doing everything for as well. So I'll wake up pretty early. I'm a morning person. I've always gotten good sleep. So I've never like people are like, I'm a bad sleeper. I'm like, I just don't know what that means. So I'm lucky in that sense. I know my sleep's great. Just recently this year, I've been doing more meditation. So I'll wake up, I'll meditate for like 25 minutes. transcendental meditation. So I just got certified in that. I'll go to the gym. Usually I would say a minimum of 5 days a week. I'm lifting weights. I'm doing cardio. I'll go back and forth maybe every couple months doing a couple yoga sessions. But that's typically what I do in terms of exercise and fitness. I'll come home, I'll eat a pretty heavy protein, breakfast, eggs, turkey sausage, turkey bacon, something like that. I actually don't eat lunch. So I do feel like I restrict my calories. I want to change that. I want to test it. I know I just don't get enough veggies in. Like I need to actually eat like a, fruitful lunch, because I am maybe a little bit hungry during the time, but work on restricting my calories as well. And then usually my nights are filled with, going home, making a great great dinner, protein, veggies, a little bit of carbs, fats as well. And then relaxing, whether it's with like a book, family. I think quality of relationships is really big as well. Taking my dog on a walk. I think that's vital, putting away the work, right? Putting a stop to that, or having a pretty ebbing flow of kind of, work and traditional home life. And then, meditate another 25 minutes before I go to bed, and get to bed around like 9:30, 10. I go to bed really early. Early too. And I have, my daily dose of supplements I'll take. Those are based on, laboratory values that I take from the TruAge testing with my biological aging, and then with my traditional, blood work that I get done as well every 6 months.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to ask you in a second what supplements that you do take, but everybody, as she kind of just said, she takes supplements because of specific things that she realized she is potentially deficient in. And so she's taking supplements, or potentially would really help her in a particular way. So supplements are always usually should be as specific to the person as possible. It's not just a supplement recommendation is a umbrella for everybody. But that said, what are some of the supplements that you take?
Yeah, absolutely. I love sulforaphane, the broccoli extract. Found a really cool company called Brockshot that does it in the correct way in terms of like their actual broccoli sprouts. So they're great. It's like a powdered supplement. I do take vitamin D. I can be deficient in that, but again, I don't want to overtake it too. I think there's a good window. So playing around and monitoring that. I take omegas. I think, if anything, vitamin D and omegas can be a little bit standard for almost anyone. They have a pretty safe profile. Same with creatine as well. So I take creatine too. I think for women, that's a no-brainer, even especially if you're, trying to put on a little bit of muscle mass and lift a little bit heavier in the gym. There's really not many downside components when taking that. I do like the berberine or the dihydroberberine to help with a little bit of insulin sensitivity, glucose control. I'm always watching that on myself. Again, a history of type 2 diabetes in my family. I'm okay there, but want to take preventative approaches and just making sure I'm not even getting close to those markers. So I would say those are the main ones. A couple hormones here and there, depending on what my laboratory values look like as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I've got a few more questions for you. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. This has been great. So if you get your testing done with your epigenetics, and then you see something is turned on or off that you don't want on or off, and then you get maybe recommended to change something particular in your lifestyle, how long should you expect it to take to see difference if you did the testing again? Like, is it something that you should be able to see a change in? Obviously it's going to depend, I know, but like, you see a change in 3 months, 6 months? Like, how often would you recommend somebody get this test done?
Yeah, I think every 6 months, if you really want to go heavy here, I think, you could do every 9 to 12 months if you really wanted to. And we have a smaller kit as well that just does that pace metric, where you could start testing every 2 to 3 months if you do want quicker feedback and really more N-of-1 precision-based data, which is also a great way, I think, to validate if something's, increasing that number one risk factor or decreasing it.
Yeah. And more specific to like the services that you guys provide. So if somebody gets your test and they get it, what exactly does their report look like? Is there specific things like, okay, this gene is turned off, we want that one turned on, here's insert lifestyle that you can change, and if this one's turned off but we want it turned on, this is insert lifestyle behavior? What exactly can somebody expect to receive after having done one of these tests?
Yeah, we're getting there. Absolutely. So we kind of call those, again, these epigenetic biomarker proxies, the idea that we can look at the individual components that make up the biological age clock. So, I may look at mine and say, oh, interesting. My red blood cell distribution width is, high, and you want that to be lower. Maybe I am deficient in vitamin B12, folate. Maybe I need to take that supplement you showed earlier, right, to give some more methylation support, or try and get that through dietary input as well. So it's absolutely getting more specific. My goal is like eventually looking at every single position, or the ones that really matter, and again saying like, hey, Nick, you're methylated at 0.5, you want it at 0.6. Here's what it means, and here's how you get there, right? I mean, it's not going to be that specific, but we can start to make recommendations based on the different components of the biological aging clock.
That's awesome. I love it. I know that there is also, in looking at the site and the details about the test and everything, there's a bunch of different like reports that it provides back to you, a couple of which is like weight loss resistance report. Then there's an immune cell report. And so to speak on that immune cell report one, I think I read where it says it discovers the concentration and ratios of various types of immune cells throughout your body, along with how those results are associated with either an increased or decreased risk of death and disease, such as cancer and type 2 diabetes. So if somebody is getting this, like what exactly are they, what information are they being provided? Is it like you have because of this gene expression or this thing being turned on or off, you're at a 2 times increased risk of a particular type of cancer, and so here's kind of how we recommend changing your lifestyle? Or what does somebody expect to get from like an immune cell report?
Yeah, there's one marker in particular there that I would say we like to hyper focus on. It's called the CD4-CD8 T cell ratio. It's a pretty, widely used marker to understand if someone's immune system is properly functioning.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, CD4 to CD8 T cell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just letter C, then D4, kind of slash CD8. And if that's too low, you're probably immunosuppressed at the time you took this test. You might want to take like some more vitamin D, some zinc, some immune modulation therapy to boost that back up into range. And if it's too high, you're having some hyperreactivity of the immune system as well that we may need to address.
Would that something like that be potentially a signal that you might have some autoimmune things going on potentially?
Yeah, exactly. There's not much you could do, at that time. We just want to monitor it and make sure it's at least not staying super high.
Okay. Gotcha. One of the things that I do every once in a while is I have a Best You members who love listening to the podcast, and I'll give advance notice of who I'm having on, and they can request questions if they want to. So I'm going to have one question that was submitted from Susan. She was saying, what have studies shown regarding health, lifestyle, exercise, and nutrition behaviors that are most linked with good long-term brain health?
Yeah. In terms of just supplements for long-term brain health?
I think it's kind of anything like supplements, lifestyle behaviors, exercise, nutrition. Like what are some of the biggest habits that we can do that help improve our brain health as we age?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, you want to have a measurement, right? What does that brain health even look like? We actually have a CRP marker, C-reactive protein, DNA methylation marker that's better than your traditional CRP because it's actually related to brain health outcomes. So if this marker looks a little bit higher on you, you may want to start to engage in some of these activities that I'll name. And really, we're starting to look at anti-inflammatory based pathways, right? So anything that is going to help reduce inflammation, it's probably going to help reduce inflammation around the brain, especially, and really help you with overall brain function. That includes anti-inflammatory based diet. That includes also really making sure you're not overdoing it in terms of the working out, in terms of moving the body too much. There are a couple supplements out there as well that may look a little good. There's things, there's one supplement I really like called Focus from a particular company, from Infinawell. I think it's a pretty cool nootropic for everyone. It has really these patented products and ingredients in it that help optimize like neurological process and function, more mental like recall, short and long-term brain work, supporting memory. I think you can even do some apps and games that can help you increase your memory as well. But I think those options are all great if we just talk purely like lifestyle and maybe give you a supplement in there. Any nootropics.
That's awesome. That's awesome. This has been super fascinating, super educational, and I think that so many people hopefully have learned a lot, hopefully have gained interest, and sparks their curiosity with regards to taking one of these tests. I know that I'm just really excited to see my results. I'm always fascinated to learn more about my body, and I feel very lucky to have gained a really strong curiosity and interest at the age of 29 to feel like I have a lot of control over my risk of disease, how long I'm able to live, and how long I'm able to live well. The last thing I want to ask is, there are so many now like research studies that people talk about with regards to this diet, this supplement, this exercise routine, this, that, and the other. And I know there's like different types of research studies. Could be epidemiological studies, there could be randomized control trials, and everything in between. One of the things that I think is so hard from a scientific standpoint is it's damn near impossible to control people's behaviors. And there's so many different factors as to like any particular biomarker, right? It's not like necessarily just going to be your nutrition. It's not just, it could be also stress and your sleep and your vitamin D levels, like all these different things. I guess my point in asking the question is, how do you, as an expert in the health and longevity space, how do you analyze studies for ones that you believe actually have merit versus ones that you're like, I don't really need to pay attention to this one?
Yeah, in terms of like outcomes or testing or just everything, right?
I guess no, I'm glad that follow up. I think outcomes, like if you're just somebody else who's seeing outcomes from other studies and wondering if the outcome is legitimate or not, then what should we be looking for?
Thanks for clearing that up. There's a list of questions I ask myself, I would say, when going through. First, if we're just focusing on biological aging, you need to look at what clock they're using, right? What's the precision on it? Is it actually predictive of outcomes? Does it tell you and give you insights into what's really included in that kind of makeup of the clock? Does it actually change with other things that are going to improve health span and lifespan? So those are just a couple questions that I ask myself. I think any paper or any news article claiming to reverse biological aging is just trying to get you to read it, right? I don't think it's necessarily one that may hold a lot of scientific evidence in it. So I think, again, being careful and understanding that this is still a very, very new field.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I know a lot of people learned a lot today and hopefully gained interest in taking this test. You guys can go to TruDiagnostic.com to learn more about the testing, the cost, and getting everything squared away on your own. I do think that this is something that all of us would benefit in investing in. The True Age Complete Test is one that gives you a really good rundown of all these different things. Also, you guys should follow Hannah on Instagram at Everything Epigenetics to learn more. She's always posting content on topics with regards to epigenetics and such. What other places should people go to learn more about you and get connected with everything that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. My email's always open as well. Hannah at TruDiagnostic, Hannah at Everything Epigenetics. I have them both. So would love to engage in any conversation if you all have any further questions, or shoot me a message on Instagram as well, Everything Epigenetics.
Awesome. Well, this is Super important work. I really appreciate all the hard work and thought and diligence that goes into this, because again, I think that I want everybody to leave this conversation feeling more empowered with their own health outcomes and realizing that there are so many different things that you can do to positively change the trajectory of your lifespan and your health span. So you can not only just live longer, but live longer, better, not just add years to your life, but life to your years. And you're doing some of the best work to help people do that. So I appreciate it. And that's all we got today. Thanks so much, Hannah.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate your time.
That interview was absolute fire. I cannot wait to get my epigenetics test results back soon and let you guys know what I discover. If you're needing a jumpstart in your fitness and nutrition routines, then try the 10WT 1 week free trial. You'll get 3 amazing strength training video workouts that you can complete in just 30 minutes. Just go to nickcarrier.com/free trial to sign up today. Again, nickcarrier.com/free trial to sign up today for free. Some of my biggest takeaways from Hannah are the following. Number 1, knowing how your lifestyle is impacting your genes is key. It's not only key for adding years to your life, but for adding life to your years. Number 2, we have all got to start taking stress more seriously. If Hannah says that stress is ranked as the #1 impact on epigenetics and biological aging, then I believe her. And I think we all need to start taking it more seriously and not just accepting stress as a fact of life. And then third and finally, you can change the pace at which you're aging. I mean, how cool and exciting is that? For every 4 years that you live on Earth, you can make it so you actually only age 3 years. So think about it this way. That means if you get to this 0.75 pace that she was talking about at age 30, then when you're 70 years old, your biological age is only going to be 60. That's absolutely insane, super exciting, and will definitely make you live longer and live healthier for longer. And it's never too late to be focused on this. I mean, what an awesome episode with Hannah. I hope you feel empowered that your genes are not your destiny, but your lifestyle is. Change the way that you manage stress, the way that you eat, exercise, and sleep, and you can maximize the chances of living a long, healthy life, and ultimately maximize the chances of you continuing to get closer and closer to your best you.